Hello, and welcome to week 2 of Integrating Mind, Body, and Spirit. Today we're going to be talking all about the mind. So our intention as we discuss mind, body, and spirit is that we are going to be developing something called witness consciousness. And what this is it's this idea that we are not the mind. We often identify with our thoughts. And our thoughts are one thing, but there is a part of us that can watch everything that we're doing. And it's often called witness consciousness. The second intention that we're going to have for all of these videos is we're going to embody an outlook of curiosity, meaning embodying a willingness to see your experience differently, to have the possibility that something else could be true or you could have a new experience. Okay, so the mind. The mind is a very powerful tool. And in our world, most of our world, we really value the mind and what it can do. It is... We are often thinking in this terms of logic, figuring things out. I need to solve this problem. And this is all very true. These are great aspects of the mind. These are the mind's strengths: logic, analyzing, learning, understanding. And the mind is also a meaning-making machine. Makes meaning out of everything that it encounters, which can be very great. And this becomes problematic because the mind begins to get attached to what the thoughts are based on past experiences or proof that it's seeing in front of it. So it's always going to find ways that it's going to link things together for us. And this is great when we're trying to solve a math problem, or we're baking and we need to use that like logic of what are the right equations, flour to water. I'm not a baker. I'm not a big baker, so I don't know these equations very well. But when the mind is running the show all the time, it can become a hindrance to us because we're questioning what we're doing. The mind is constantly questioning what we're doing based on logic. So the yogis would call this samskaras. And a samskara is the easiest pathway that the mind or the thinking mind follows. And it's sometimes seen as thought loops. They're thought loops that find path like on an old vinyl record. And the needle, our thought loops, stay in that path. And those thought loops have often come into play since we were children. So, for example, I am anxious. If that was my thought loop, I am anxious, I am anxious, I am anxious, I am anxious. That groove, that thought loop is going to be well worn in my mind. In neuroscience, this is also seen as our neural peptides, the path of the neural peptides. And it's the same way in that there's that well-worn groove, or we can look at it as a superhighway. So it's like those thoughts that are most common for our mind to think are like driving a car down a superhighway. It just goes. Now let's say I take this example of this thought in my mind. I am anxious, I am anxious, I am anxious. Let's say I wanted to change that. Let's say I wanted to say, I am calm, I am calm, I am calm. What happens is on this neural network, because that thought is not something that I think very often, the neural network is going to be like driving down a dirt pothole-filled road. It's going to be harder. I'm going to have to go more slowly. And the mind is going to want to jump back to the superhighway, which is the thought of, I am anxious, I am anxious, I am anxious. So this is kind of how the mind works. The mind takes the path of least resistance. The more often you have the thoughts, those are the pathways, the neural peptides, the neural peptide highway that the mind will take, simply because it's easiest. So when we have these really strong neural pathways, depending on what they are, if we use my example of I am anxious, these thoughts can become incessant because it's just a thought that the mind is always thinking, right? And this can lead to anxiety, depression, and like living in constant fear. So not always a fun place to be, right? Sometimes normal, sometimes you're anxious because there's a lot going on in your life. Totally okay. And when it becomes incessant, then often we get to a place where it's like, I need to change something. And one of the things the mind loves to do as well is to make things more complicated than they are. The mind often looks for these big ahas, these big trophies. If you're trying to figure something out, it's like it must be this experience, right? But what is true is that it's the subtle and the simple that we need to employ when working with the mind. So we're going to embody this witness consciousness here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to notice with non-judgment. So just noticing, what's my mind doing? What is your mind doing? And while holding that non-judgment and noticing your mind, you hold that understanding, oh, my mind is just following the path of least resistance. My mind is just following this thought loop that has been on and has the deepest groove for a really long time. That's why my mind thinks about these things. And then we're going to shift the focus. So we notice with non-judgment, we understand, we hold the understanding of the mind, and then we shift the focus. So how do we do this? So the practice that I'm going to invite you to do today is simple. It's a practice of mindfulness or meditation, but what I like to call it is noticing. I find that mindfulness and meditation have a heavy connotation about them where it's, I have to do it right. I have to do it right. And we're going to take that out right now because our intention is to hold the witness consciousness and to hold curiosity. So how are we going to notice? First step of noticing is you're going to find a comfortable spot to sit. Make your body comfortable. Maybe you lie down, just as long as you don't fall asleep. So find a comfortable spot to sit. Make sure your clothes are comfortable. And you're going to set a timer for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever feels best to you and whatever feels most doable for you. It's very important. Okay, we want this to feel easy. We want this to feel full of ease. And so you're going to find a place to sit and you're going to close your eyes and you're going to start focusing on your breath and breathing. Now, as you begin this practice, you're going to start breathing. And in your inhale and exhale, you're going to focus on the inhale and the exhale. And then what's going to happen is your mind's going to wander. Your mind's going to think about that thing you did yesterday or the dinner you have to make tonight. The mind is going to wander. That is what the mind does. And so in step 2, you're going to practice compassion. You're going to hold compassion for yourself and for your mind, because that is what the mind does. So step 1, closing your eyes, finding a comfortable spot, beginning to breathe, and then you're going to go, your mind's going to wander, you can go, oh, there's my mind wandering again. Okay, there's my mind wandering. Step 3 is shifting focus. So you're going to bring your focus back to your breath. All you're going to do is, oh, there's my mind wandering again. And you're going to go, right, I'm breathing. And you're going to start inhaling and exhaling. So first step, sit, notice, focus on the breath. Second step, practice compassion when your mind wanders. Third step, shift the focus, bring the mind back to the breath. Simple, easeful, gentle. This is an exercise of creating that witness consciousness. It is an exercise of teaching the mind that you are in charge, not the mind. Your mind is like some little Tasmanian devil running around, just wanting to get into everything, right? And we are going, okay, little devil, little Tasmanian devil, let's just sit down here. We're going to do this right now. And then it's going to run around again. And you're going to go, okay, let's just come back here and sit and let's play with this thing that we're focusing on right now. And then it's going to run around again. Okay, so we're developing, through this practice, you're going to develop the witness consciousness and then a deep compassion and understanding of your mind. And as you go through, you may notice all sorts of different thoughts come up. Maybe it's the I am anxious. Maybe it's the, oh, there's my mind wandering again. And you're going to notice the judgment. Any thoughts that the mind attaches to, you are then going to go, okay, thank you thoughts, thank you mind, and you're going to come back to the breath. Okay, so this is step 1 of the mind, how we're going to start getting to know the mind. We're developing a relationship with the mind. We're developing that witness consciousness that is there to really support you, support us on our human journey. All right, so I will see you next week for the body.